And at this time, I'd like to introduce Reverend Kay Stewart to deliver our Sunday lesson and treatment.
Well, welcome, everyone. How are you today? Come on, we can do better than that. Great. Well, today we're talking about new freedom. You know, in the United States, we take our freedom seriously, and we do lots of things to encourage freedom. And yet, how free are we? How free are we really? I'd like to kind of look at that a little bit. And I want to start with the physical. How free are we in the physical? Well, you know, I cannot walk into the White House without an appointment and a real reason to be there. I can't walk into most factories or most homes or any place else that have the word private on it. You just aren't allowed. And we take that as being just common courtesy, as being part of who we are. But when you start looking at it, that isn't a freedom, that's a restriction of some sort. We also have a restriction as to a lot of times when we can go, when we can do things, because most of us, we work. And you know, our jobs just say you have to be there. They don't say you can just take off when you feel like you really need a nap and go home and take one and then come back. It just doesn't happen. So that's another place where we're a little bit more restricted than maybe we realized. Another place, though, I want to go just a little deeper, is what restrictions do we put on our physical bodies? What sort of restrictions do we put on it? In other words, some of us have put restrictions on that we don't have freedom of movement, that somehow we have to either use things to help us move, or we are limited in some fashion. We think that we get older, we can't do a lot of things like hike down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back up, or go climbing a rock, or lots of different things. We start restricting ourselves in our bodies and what we think are good. We also have this age-old idea that we get old. We get old, and when we get old, we start having problems with our eyesight, our hearing, our mobility, our flexibility. We start putting these bars around us, literally putting ourselves in a prison. Now, it's very interesting. Is that something that we can change? Is that a place that we can move into new freedom? Well, we'll talk about that a little later, because first I'd like to go into our emotional aspect of freedom and what we might think that we have. Now, a lot of us think we're very emotionally free, but you know, it's okay for a child, if they fall and hurt themselves, to cry in public, to scream, to get upset, and so forth, and everybody rushes to comfort them. But one of you fall, and what happens? Do you allow yourself to cry? Do you allow yourself to express the feeling that you're feeling at the moment? No, we have an unwritten law, in a sense, that says as you get older, you don't have outbursts like that, and you don't cry in public. And so people try to hold it in and stuff it away somehow, even if they're feeling very hurt or upset. What about when you get angry? You know, in some places, it's okay to get angry, but only so much, only so much. If you get too angry, if you start outbursting too much, what happens? The police are called in, or you're ostracized by the rest of the people. What about loving? A simple act of loving. We often shy away from letting ourselves sometimes even hug somebody, like at the doorway. I don't know how many of you have ever experienced the good old tent hug, where you're hugging but not getting too close. Not too close. Something might be contagious there. And so we put some more bars around us. We allow ourselves to close ourselves in some more. There's even times in your home in that where instead of saying what you think or expressing what you think, you hold back because you think the other person maybe can't understand, or you think you might hurt somebody's feelings, or you might not be accepted for who you are. There goes some more of those bars. Is there a way out of that? Of course there is. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. And next though, I'd like to go to mentality. A lot of us think that, oh yeah, we can think anything we want. We are mentally free. But how often were you in school and you were not sure, you didn't want to be too smart and you didn't want to be too stupid? When I was growing up, I remember that girls really didn't express how smart they were in math because girls weren't good mathematicians. They just weren't. And a girl certainly didn't go into workshop or into wood shop or mechanics. You just didn't do it. They didn't even offer that for a girl in a sense when you were going to school and that. Fortunately, now they do. Now both boys and girls are able to intermingle in the different classes, and there aren't those sort of unspoken conditions about that. But how often have you allowed that past, those old ideas, to condition who you are now? To condition who you are now. And it all goes back to the past. It all goes back to those places where we thought some sort of constriction was put in, some sort of fencing or bars or walls were put up. And so something happens now, and what do? We jump to that past, and we go, oh, well, this is the way it has to be. This is what's going on. And so we move into what is called drama. And I'm sure most of you know what drama is, but I'm going to give you a really good example that I was able to experience this last week. Now, this last week, I got home, and I had not slept very well for 4 or 5 days because I had went down to the advisors training, which was a camp down in Southern California, which was all well and good. And on the way back, our grandson got very sick, so we had to deal with that on the way back. And then we get home, and a problem came up with my mother. We were worried that she might have some sort of lump or something. And I thought, okay, be calm, be cool, just take it one step at a time. Call the doctor, make the appointment, and I did that. And then I was supposed to come here and join a class, and I came here and I saw Mary and I just broke down. Just totally broke down. I was fully and completely in the drama so well that I could hardly think at the time. And that's exactly what that drama did. It closed off my thinking. It stopped me from seeing what was there and going, well, we haven't even went to the doctor yet. We don't know what's going on. Just relax. Wait until we figure out what's happening before going into this state. But I didn't. I went right into it. I bought it lock, stock, and barrel. And I tell you, I was so nice to my mother. I was so careful with her as we were moving around and that. And of course, I try to always be that way. But inside, I was scared to death. I was really scared, and I was in that place of fear. And it was really hard to move out of it. And then we go to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, there's nothing there. Everything's fine. And You know, it was a strange reaction I had, and maybe some of you can associate with this. When I got done at the doctor, it was like a part of me was relieved. Oh, thank goodness, there's nothing wrong, we don't have to worry. But another part of myself said, why did you go through all that fear? That isn't right. You went through all this for nothing. So I was condemning myself at the same time, back and forth. And I was almost upset because there wasn't something. And I realized that what it was I bounced back to the past. My dad died of pancreatic cancer, and it scared me. I didn't want to see my mom have to go through that too. And so I took that fear from the past and I brought it forward, and that's where I sat for 2 days. And it was very scary 2 days. That's what drama can do. And it can be very, very sneaky. That's subtle. That's more subtle drama than getting in a fight with somebody because something somebody said. Although what was interesting was I have heard this week about how somebody just put out an idea and somebody else took it totally wrong. Now, whose drama was that? Was it the person who took it totally wrong, or was it the person who put out that statement innocently? Well, it was both. It was both. It's both their drama because they were involved in it. It's never one-sided. So the idea of freedom is we don't want to be in that drama all the time. We don't want to be in that place where we get pulled out of our center and we feel really bad and we can't think anymore. We don't want to be in that position where we put those blinders on and all we know is fear of one sort or another. And that fear might be expressed as anger, it might be expressed as fear, it might be expressed as pain or hurt. But it's still that. It's still that. And so what we want to do is we want to follow what Ernest Holmes told us so many times. We want to turn away from the condition, from whatever's going on in our lives. When we have that drama come up, that's the time we have to start looking. Now, it might take a while because when you're in the drama, you're not thinking. So first you need to kind of pull yourselves out. But the more we do this, the more we practice this, it's like a muscle. A muscle has to be worked to become strong. Well, we have to work at allowing ourselves to step back and to see what's happening. It's a habit, it's a strength, it's a power, and it's not going to happen overnight. There's a wonderful little story in this book, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen this. It's called The 5 Steps to Treatment by John Waterhouse. And Waterhouse is our president of CSL right now, of the whole organization. And he tells this little story, and he says this man from Africa was very happily sitting by his fire, enjoying the day. He was the chief of the tribe. And these 3 young warriors come up to him and said, "We want to challenge you to be chief." And he thought about it a minute, and he said, "Okay, as long as you do it my way, whoever can do this can become chief. No problem. I will step aside." So what he did was he said, "I want you each to take a turn and try to break that bundle of sticks over there. Now, the only restriction is you can only try one time." So the first guy, what does he do? He props the sticks up a little bit, and he puts his foot in the middle and tries to stomp them, as many of us have when we had that stick, and stomp it and break it. Didn't work. I mean, remember, this is a bundle of sticks. It didn't really work too well. So the next warrior, he takes it and he props it up even more, and he jumps on it. And he just bounces right off. And that didn't work either. So the last warrior, he sees a branch up high and he puts the bundle up there and he grabs both sides and he tries to crack it that way and put his full strength on it. And he doesn't break it. And they say to the chief, well, it's impossible. It's impossible to break that. Let's see you do it. And they challenge him. And he says, it's very simple. And he walks over and he unties the bundle and he breaks each stick individually. It is not easy for us to change our thinking, for us to change our habits, for us to change how we are all at once. We have to break the sticks one at a time. We have to move into that place where we are working in one area of our lives and get that down first and not criticize ourselves or come down on ourselves because we can't do the whole bundle at once. So this is a perfect time if you have those bars around you of things of the past, to take just one. Take just one and start working on it. And how do we work on it? Well, religious science has a wonderful method for moving us into new freedom. It's called treatment. And I'm sure many of you have heard about treatment if you've been coming to this church. Many of you have probably taken classes on how to do treatment. But I'm going to go over it briefly for those that may have never done treatment before. Now, treatment is our form of affirmative prayer. To start with, we are not praying to change God. God doesn't need changing. We are not praying to have the universe do something special to us. God has already given us everything you can imagine. We are not praying for the universe to wave a magic wand and make everything okay, because we have done it all to ourselves. God didn't do anything to us. So the first step of treatment is to recognize that there is God, I call God, a force in the universe that is intelligent, that has created everything around us. And this force, whatever you choose to call it, this force runs through every atom of your body. It runs through every part of your mind, your thoughts. It runs through everything you see. And you can call the force whatever you choose to. You can call it universal energy. You can call it unlimited potentiality. You can call it anything you want, because it doesn't care in the least bit. It's just recognizing that there is something there, something there. The second part of treatment that we do is called unification. And this unification allows us to recognize that if God is everything, then we cannot be separate. And for a lot of people, and myself included, this is a part that sometimes causes me real problems. Why? Because it is my nature to think in separation, because after all, when I touch you, I'm still separate. When I am in, no matter what I do, I see me as a separate body from everything else. But is that the truth? Is that the truth? It really isn't. It's just appearances. It's just appearances. Our mind is linked with everybody's. Our heart is linked with everybody's. We are one with the spiritual essence that created all of life. We are one with that. What does that mean? It means that we have all the love, that we have access to all the joy, all the security, all the peace, all that is good in the universe. Just like our hand is part of our arm, we are part of God, if you want to think about it like that. There's no separation. Now, the third part that we bring in is what we call Realization, thank you. And that is where we realize what we want. Now, I'll tell you, you can be very superficial and say, oh, I want that house on the corner. That is what I want. But we like to go a little deeper because, yes, you can get that house. If you work at that and treat for that, you can get that house. But you know, sometimes it's really hard to know all the little bits about that house. You might get it and then find out you can't afford it. Or you might find out that you have neighbors that you really don't want around. Or you might find a dozen other things. But Spirit always knows what we need. Spirit always knows that. So what we do is, instead of asking for that thing that looks like that first appearance, we try to go a little deeper. What does that house give you? What feeling does it invoke? What is it that you really want out of a new house? It might be freedom of movement, openness. It might be security and knowing that you've got a good solid roof over your head and a place to rest your head. It might be family. It might be friendship. It could be a lot of different things and so what we do is we ask for those things. Why? Because those things spread out into all aspects of your life. So I used to tell people, you know, it doesn't matter what we treat for. We could be treating for a hangnail. But when we get down to what that hangnail is about, we change our whole lives. We can change our whole experience of what we're doing. The fourth step is thanksgiving, just giving thanks. Now, does God need thanks? Do you as a parent, when you give your child something, need them to fawn over you and say, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you? No, of course not. Who needs the thanks? We do. We need to be thankful, because in that action of giving thanks, we open our hearts. We open our hearts and we acknowledge that we have a gift. And then, of course, there's releasing. We release what it is because, like any good plant, once we plant it, we don't want to pull it back up and see if it's growing. It quits growing. We need to leave it in the ground. We need to leave it planted. And so the idea isn't that we do treatment in exactly these ways, or that we say prayer has to be these words, include these words, or anything else. The whole idea is to get down to what does it feel like? What does it feel like? Can you experience that feeling of knowing that there's spirit, that you're one with it? Can you experience that feeling of gratitude and thanksgiving? And to me, one of the greatest treatments that you can ever do, or greatest prayers you can ever say in your life, is simply thank you. Simply that much, with that deep inner gratitude that's yours, because it does open you up. Now, treatment, if you want to learn more about treatment, I really suggest you take some classes, because we go into it much deeper, into what it is involved. And I guarantee you that if you take the classes, your life will never be the same. Just ask any of us who have taken classes. Your life will never, never be the same. Of course, I'll tell you a secret. When you walk out of here, your life won't be like it was before, because every minute adds something new. Every second is a new presence. And so I encourage all of you to move into a new freedom in your life, to help you get rid of the drama that is going on, so that you can keep this core of joy, this core of centeredness of who you are as you go out into the world, so that when those things come up, they don't drastically move you into that fear-based idea. Even though I had the fear with my mom, it was easy to move right out of it. And for that, I am really thankful because all of this has helped. And from that, I allow myself to look and go, well, what can I do so that if this does come up again, because she is getting older, if this does come up again, how can I move through this so that I am more centered than I was this last time? So that I don't just give in to that fear and become stymied, become stagnant. Because the last thing I want to do is be stagnant with her. I want to be loving. I want to be open. I want to enjoy all the time that I have with her and with each person I meet. I want to be authentic. That's what it gets down to. I want to be authentic. Do you? Do each of you? Please join me in a treatment, in that spiritual prayer. There is only one being, one essence, one miracle in the universe, and that is what I call God. I recognize the absolute timelessness of it. I recognize the sacredness of all of life that has been created. And I also choose to recognize right now that I'm one with it, that I am not separate. I have never been separate. I cannot ever be separate from Spirit. The only thing I can do is put up the illusion of separateness. And I choose this very moment to get rid of that, to allow it to evaporate into the nothingness from which it came. In fact, I allow all those fears, all those past events that have any influence on my present moment right this now to evaporate. I forgive the past. I forgive the people involved, and I forgive myself. And I forgive myself when I move into that fear. I forgive myself when I put those bars around me. And when I forgive myself, I notice that the bars disappear. The bars dissolve. For I know the truth. And I know the truth for myself, and I know the truth for each person here, that we are love. We are joy. We are compassion. We are patience. We are success and abundance. There is nothing in my life that has not already been given to me. And I choose, with the letting go of the bars, I choose to walk out that door, to move through it, and become whole, and know my wholeness, for it is already present. I choose to know my peace, for it is already present. And as I move into this place of peace and centeredness, into this place where drama rolls off of me like water off a duck, I am thankful. I am just so thankful that the universe, that Spirit has given me a way to always come back to it, to always be now present. And so I release this treatment into the law and know it is done. And together we say, and so it is.